Did you know that prior to World War II, all American textbooks taught our students that the most significant political speech ever delivered by a U.S. president was George Washington's farewell address at the end of his presidency? In this speech, he gave 12 specific warnings to the country to guard against in the future. One of those warnings was, don't ever let the government get into deficit spending. But the points he really hammered home had to do with how our political leaders should maintain public morality. Now, since everybody agrees there's a crisis in public morality in our own time, President Clinton and our congressional leaders would do well to listen carefully and follow George Washington's advice in this area. Listen.
Well, I think certainly George Washington's qualified to voice some opinion. He is the president of the convention that gave us the Constitution. He is the president of the United States who oversaw the formation of the Bill of Rights and its ratification. He is the man who gave 45 years of his life to public service to see America strong, established as an independent nation. He's called the father of our country. Certainly, his opinion should count for something. Well, George Washington has very strong opinions on whether religious principles are part of public affairs. He voiced those opinions in his final political speech, his farewell address. After 2 terms in office, he's leaving. And he calls America and he says, America, this is what has brought us to this point. This is what we must do to keep going. Now, his farewell address is 12 very succinct, clear warnings to the nation on what we must do to stay on track. They were so important that for decades and even over a century in America, that farewell address was actually a complete textbook. Students memorized George Washington's farewell address for history class, for speech class. We studied it thoroughly because here they were taught was the most significant political speech ever delivered by a U.S. president. An amazing thing, we've not been able to find George Washington's farewell address in most textbooks in the last 4 decades. Prior to World War II, you could find it in every textbook. It's disappeared since. Why in the world? So many of the warnings he gave us 200 years ago, we need today. One of the warnings he told us then was don't ever let the government get into deficit spending. That's a wonderful warning. We could use it today, but we can't find his farewell address in textbooks. Why? Because of his 12 warnings, 4 warnings were very clearly religious. One of his warnings, he said there's only 2 supports for political prosperity in America. He said that's religion and morality. He said, therefore, don't let anyone claim to be a true American patriot if they ever try to separate religion and morality from politics. That's a strong statement. He said of all the habits and dispositions which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. He said, in vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism who should labor to subvert these great pillars. If you try to separate religion and morality from politics, you can't be called an American patriot.